we'll call this meeting of the Humboldt County Association of Governments Board to call it into order. And at this time, can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Madrone?
Present.
Mayor Jones?
Here.
Councilmember Jorgensen? Councilmember Atkins Salazar? Councilmember Orr?
Here.
Councilmember West?
Here.
Chair Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Burgell? PAC member Arroyo?
Here.
PAC member Saskia Reimer Burnett?
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll adjourn as the HCOG board and reconvene as the Policy Advisory Committee. And our first order of business today is a presentation by Julia Peterson with Caltrans District 1 Clean California Program.
Julia is on Zoom and will be presenting, so we'll get our presentation pulled up on the screen.
Thank you.
Hello. I don't seem to have a share button. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we've got audio, but I don't have a share button. I could quickly email this presentation to someone, or if someone could make me able to present. Or this will go much faster without pictures. There's always that option. Is there someone I could send this to that could put it up? Because that'd be fine with me.
We're working on.
Yeah, you should have permissions.
Okay.
On your end.
They're saying you should have permission. I don't know if anyone.
Not if it's a button that says share or anything like that.
Move the mouse, it goes away. So, okay,
There we go. Now it's here. I
Oh.
do have one.
good.
All right.
Yay.
Just arrived. Perhaps my internet. Thank you, Optimum, I believe it is, that we can thank for the internet, right?
You got a beautiful logo now.
Perfect. And now I'm going to try to get you guys on the right screen so you don't all see the side of my head the whole time. So I recognize some of you. I am Julia Peterson with Caltrans Clean California. I'm the project coordinator and the program project manager and the program coordinator. Sorry, I got that backwards. So today I am going to give you a really brief overview, flash a few pictures in front of you, and talk about some of the things I think that are relevant to the local governments and some opportunities that we have for you. So Clean California is Governor Newsom's transformative initiative to remove litter, create jobs, and beautify California. And so everything we do is underlain by these principles. And it was a $1.1 billion initiative. It is now a $1.2 billion initiative. And it's roughly a third to remove litter, which includes dump days, a third for the Caltrans beautification projects, and about a third of the money, which includes that extra $100 million, is relevant to this conversation because that is for the local community grants. And I think that we certainly have several in our district, and there's going to be some interest in that. So I wanted to touch briefly on community days. We held a celebration under the Samoa Bridge. You can see the murals in my background. Those murals are one of our beautification projects. So Clean California, through a co-op with the city of Eureka, installed those murals. There is one more that isn't in this picture, but so I figured that that's a great background. And then under that, we had community days, trying to help the public. So Caltrans can take a 3-year Clean California program and clean things up but we really need the community to maintain that. The governor's not going to be able to pay Caltrans to keep California clean. It's to clean up and to help transfer the responsibility to the community for keeping things clean. So we had our first ever, yet to be seen whether it's first annual, but we had very good feedback, Community Day, and we held that under the small bridge. Like I said, these are some photos. It was an entirely free event. We had mascots, lots of activities. Kids could play trash sorting games. There's County Supervisor Arroyo. We had lots of different vendors here, and we gave away dump day vouchers. So we had 700 vouchers, good for one free load to the dump, asking people to clean up and start at home, bring their trash to the dump. We had a nice line for that. So moving on from, this is sort of a review. We had community days, we had beautification projects. So we have 2 in the Eureka area that are within your jurisdiction, the Vance Avenue Parklet and the Small Bridge murals. I think many people have seen the murals. Fewer people know about the Manila Vance Avenue Parklet project. And the parklet is in a place that used to have abandoned cars, and it was constantly a source of light. And what we did is, based on a community member, Jennifer Savage, recommended that we turn this sort of wide spot in the road / parking area into a parklet. We did that, and now it is actually a recreational, and the dumping problem has been almost eliminated. So there are within Humboldt County 3 additional beautification projects. We are beautifying downtown Hoopa, and that is in construction right now. If you happen to go through Hoopa, you'll start to see some of the work. In Orleans, that bid is being accepted now. And I think we've accepted Orleans, and Berry Summit we were working on accepting today. So these 2 projects will be happening this summer. The Orleans will be downtown beautification, and Berry Summit will be probably what I call the most popular pit toilet ever. We'll be installing picnic benches and a vault toilet, a two-door vault toilet at Berry Summit. So that it will look significantly nicer once we're done, and that'll again be constructed this summer. So that is what we're doing through Caltrans for beautification, which is, remember, 1/3 of the money. Removing litter is 1/3 of the money. So we have an expansion of our Adopt a Highway program, which means that we can look for new segments, and we also pay a $250 a month stipend for adopters. In the case of our busiest adopter has figured out that businesses would like to have their name on the Adopt a Highway sign, but would not like to have to clean the litter, and he's got to deal with them. So he cleans the litter and they get the sign, and we write him a check every month for $3,500. It's a pretty nice check. We have someone giving him a run for his money in Lake County, who seems to have the same thing going on. We're happy. The businesses are happy. They've got their sign. The vendors are happy because they're getting their stipend, and the highways are very clean right now. So the next way to help with litter is the large item dump days. We'll talk more about that. We've got an education campaign, public reports of litter. And I say this frequently, but most people don't know that if you Google Caltrans customer service request, you'll get a form where you drop a pin in Google Earth and you tell us whether we have a pothole or a litter dump or an encampment that needs to be cleaned up, a former encampment. Whatever it is, you can report that to us. Please do. We have a lot of territory and we don't see everything. Here is a challenge for you: encampment litter services. I have funding right now to provide weekly or similar litter service to an encampment that's going to stay where it is, and we don't want them to have growing litter. We could fund providing them with regular litter service, whether that's a dumpster or that we pick up a certain number of bags. We'll have to figure out the arrangements. I have yet to be taken up on this offer, But if you've got an encampment that is, I don't know if we want to call it semi-permanent, but established and not planning to go anywhere, and would like to offer them a litter service to see if they can keep their encampment clean, please reach out to me, because I may be able to fund that through Clean California, or we may be able to. And then finally, Caltrans is increasing our litter cleanup. You'll see our crews out there doing litter stand down 2 days a month. And as a result, our highways are much more litter free. So in not wanting to take up too much of your time, I'm just going quickly on to dump days, or back to dump days. These are some pictures of what happens when we invite the public to bring us the trash they've been accumulating. This gives you an idea of how much trash and how many people we have been serving in District 1. So most of you probably know District 1 is Del Norte, Humboldt, Mendocino, and Lake County. Hardly a high population area, and yet literally thousands of people are bringing us their trash and hopefully helping to prevent roadside dumping. This gives you an idea of this year's, we go by fiscal year, our dump days. We are being asked by the governor's office to have 12 per year. We found that District 1 is very much in need of dump days, and that the communities want dump days. You will notice a significantly fewer, a lack almost, of Humboldt County dump days. And I feel like I'm doing a monologue. I'm not sure if anyone wants to comment on that, but I will say that we are not yet under contract with the County of Humboldt. We have contracts with Crescent, or what do you call it, Del Norte, Lake, and Mendocino, so that we can run these dump days through the county, through the contract. And in Humboldt, we actually have to work with some other local agency. So in Oric, we worked with the Community Services District, also in Willow Creek with the Community Services District. In the City of Fortuna and the City of Eureka have a signed contract with us directly. If you represent a community in Humboldt and you're interested in a direct contract, because we don't have anything yet with the county, please reach out to me. We're putting together next year's dump day schedule, and we'd be happy to talk to you. So the potential big event, number 17, we're not going to be able to do because we don't have a contract. So I do have funding reserved to try to do something that would cover everyone from McKinleyville to Rio Dell, but we don't have a sponsor yet. So that's something I'm looking for. And then here's the part that I think everyone here would want to hear from me about, and that is the local grant program. So Clean California has about a third of the money dedicated to local grants that are very, very different from the things that Caltrans has done in the past. When you think of a Caltrans grant project, don't think about Caltrans for this. If you're thinking of, could this apply to our community? This money is to restore pride in public places, to clean things up. You could do dump days. It's to beautify and improve. It could be on the state right of way, if say you're Oric and you want to do something right there along 101, but it is actually easier to get a Clean California dump day that doesn't involve an encroachment permit on the state highway. So all of your parks, recreation, city, town, county areas, any of those areas would be qualified. And it really is easier if you're not on the state right of way. So District 1 did very well in round 1. We had 16 applicants, of which 7 were funded. The largest grant that we got was the Hoopa tribe. They got $5 million to work on 4 different projects. They call it the Hoopa 4 because it's 4 separate projects on the reservation. City of Rio Dell actually received 2 grants. They applied for a large grant for the Eel River Trail and a smaller grant for a gateway beautification. Humboldt Bay Harbor District applied and is working on, it was 9 projects, but we got to Vance Avenue before they did. It was on both of our project lists. And so they have 8 projects that they're working on. So this funding is available. The City of Clear Lake is doing tree planting murals. shade structures, improving their park. Humboldt Bay Harbor District with our CAA is doing parks, murals, cleanup, that type of thing. You can use this money for non-infrastructure, such as education campaigns, that type of a thing. We have a cycle 2. It is almost over. We're at what I would call the last minute. Grants are due at the end of this month. And I would strongly encourage any group that has something either shovel ready or the concept is ready. If you're interested at all, please reach out to Preston Allen is my grant manager, or reach out to me. I can definitely give you there's my contact information. We're happy to talk about it. There's no reason all the money needs to go south to LA. So if you've got a project, please consider applying for that. And I'm hoping that you want to have a discussion about that. I'm going to give you just a little more in my monologue. This is a little strange. I can't see you guys at all. So hopefully you're hanging in there. HOOPA is very proud of the fact that they have participated in all of the components of Clean California. They have a Caltrans state right-of-way beautification project, a local grant project. We held a mattress and tire dump day where we collected mattresses and tires for recycling. We did an educational opportunity. We brought Safety Sam, our new mascot, and we really have a partnership there where we're running a dump day right now via voucher. So there's Safety Sam and Hoopa. This is the tires and the mattresses we collected in Hoopa. And then we've got an education campaign launching now that's being run by a third-party vendor. So that's pretty much what I have to share. I would love to see if you have any questions, encourage those who are interested in joining Clean California in any way, please reach out and let me help.
All right, thank you. Do we have any? Yes, Supervisor Madrone.
Well, thank you, Julia. You and Caltrans are doing amazing work with these projects. And I have to say, as a representative for the county, I'm sure Supervisor Arroyo would agree. I'm very disappointed that we still have not gotten our agreement signed with you guys. You have been incredibly patient, and I'm going to dig into that again tomorrow. I thought we had gotten that done, so that is disappointing, to say the least. And I also appreciate the educational value of everything you're doing. But, when I think about dumping, I think we all know that there are lots of factors for it. One of them is definitely poverty. All the code enforcement we're dealing with all over the county is just completely out of hand. And I know, there's a lot of reasons, but there was a time in the late 80s where dumping was free. You could take it to the transfer station for about eight years or so. And I frankly, I've had conversations with Tom Mattson about this. I frankly believe that the cost to the environment of all the illegal dumping is far greater than the revenue that we bring in. Not a great time, though, to bring such a subject up in a really tight budget crunch year happening, right? Whether it's at the cities or whether it's at the county. So I'm going to keep looking at that. And Julia, thank you for sending me that one county that does provide free dumping. I'm going to look more into that, so I appreciate that. John Shelter does a lot of work with the homeless population, actually doing encampment cleanups. And I think he would be a great individual to be funding. And I'm not sure if he needs to submit a grant for that to you, but I think we need to contact him because, he's employing homeless people. And they do an amazing job of going into these encampments and working with the people, bringing them bags so they can collect it up, and a very positive approach. So I would recommend that we try and reach out to John Shelter. I'll give him a call tomorrow myself and see if we can make that connection as well. But again, thank you for all you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Madrone. The County of Humboldt either did or is planning to submit a local grant that is a partnership. They've pulled together several other agencies that wanted to do some Clean California work, and they're working on one grant. John Shelter himself would not be eligible. It needs to be any sort of government entity, whether it's a community services district or the county or a city or something like that.
Nonprofit?
nonprofit would have to partner. So our CAA partnered with the Harbor District, for
Ah.
example,
Okay.
but the county or any other entity could partner with John Shelter, and his organization could be the sub applicant who does all the work.
Great.
And that would be very much in the spirit of Clean California, which is specifically targeted to underserved areas. And it really is something, and that could be a very simple application that really could be completed in the next 2 weeks. If somebody knows who a good partner would be, either to add them to the county application, to do a separate application for the county, or if there's some other entity that would be interested in partnering with John Shelter, it would be great. I also have to put in a plug that part of Clean California, we've hired 2 crews of people who are experiencing difficulties with workplace barriers. We're going through Elijah House, and they work with Betty Chin. So here we have a crew of people that were through Betty Chin that are working cleaning the highways within and out, 2 hours in any direction of Eureka, and we have another crew in Ukiah. And those are just low barrier jobs that to help people who are experiencing barriers to employment and getting the highways cleaned at the same time.
That's great.
So,
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other? Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank
Pack
you.
member Arroyo.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Julia, I was wondering if you could speak to some of the collaborations you've had with the Eureka Street Art Festival. I know that has been really cool, and what's the kind of future of that looking like? I know they've had some fundraising needs this year, and so for this year's festival, what's that looking like moving forward?
So last year we did the Samoa Bridges as through the city of Eureka, and they did that as the Street Art Festival. This year we're actually it's unofficial, so you can't say that we are approved yet, because I am any day hoping for final approval, but I have preliminary approval to partner with the city to paint the Herrick Avenue overpass, both northbound and southbound, as well as all of the small retaining walls between the mall and Herrick Avenue. So that's this year's project with the Eureka Street Art Festival. They did a fantastic job. We definitely can do beautification projects through cooperative agreement, where basically we work with the agency and make a financial contribution, and they do the work. That's something we can do, and is actually easier for us. So if there's interest in that, please reach out to me. We're running out of time for beautification projects, but the murals, working with the Street Art Festival, has just been a fantastic opportunity. I believe that those murals completely transformed the space under the bridges. And for anyone who doubts it, just needs to look a little further to the west to see the gray murals, and then look back at the colored murals and realize how much it improves the atmosphere under the bridge. So, and thank you, Supervisor Arroyo. I appreciate your support, and Supervisor Madrone, you've both been really supportive of Clean California in multiple areas, whether they're dump days or local grants or these beautification projects.
Well, thank you. Any other question, comment? Any public comment? No? All right, well, thank you very much. And I do hear a lot of good things coming, get posted up when they do the North State deal, and Tom reports out on it. So it's nice to see your pictures too.
Okay, anytime you want pictures, I can send those, and just you may not want to hear from me, but I'm happy to send pictures anytime.
All right, well,
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Bye.
Okay. And with that, we will come now to the Humboldt is Home video.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get this video queued up. This is the first product we've received from the REAP Multimedia Grant Awards that we made. So the scope and purpose of those awards was to fund artistic endeavors that inform the public and increase community discourse on housing needs, with the goal to really increase prospects for and decrease barriers to production of housing. So we have several artists out in the community now working on the grants they received, but this is the first product that we have, and the rest are expected within the next couple months. The video is called Humboldt is Home. It takes about 20 minutes, and the artist is Sequoia Folk Kellogg.
Humboldt is home, land of the tall trees, weed and the ocean breeze. Humboldt is home. Anybody got a tip on a place I could rent, please?
I woke up in the woods with my stomach rumbling, and I gotta find $1, so I'm off and running, awfully humbling. Never picture myself homeless, yet here I am. Same shoes was once nice, now more worn. Where I stand, if asking for $1, they look at you like you less than man. Hard to find a job, and I ain't showered in a week. Some folks smiling at me, I sense judgment when they speak. You ever been homeless, hopeless, not sure where to go? I've been there before, and the stress is uncomparable. People asking for a handout, but really need a hand up, cause your life will never change if you don't stand up straight. What you wanna judge and annotate? Nah, I just wanna see a world with more love and less hate, cause the problems never solve themselves, and we gotta see the other side. I try to smile at homeless folks with loving eyes. I tell them God bless and keep your head up with some faith and hard work. I promise days get better.
Humboldt is home, land of the tall trees, weed and the ocean breeze. Humboldt is home. Anybody got a tip on a place I could rent, please?
My name is Gwendolyn Egger. I'm currently residing at 150 Stamps Lane at the moment, but not for long. My landlord here got foreclosed on back in February of this year. She continued to collect rent from all the tenants, and she didn't even give us a notice. I've lived here for 10 plus years. I found out from a neighbor that like with 4 days the sheriffs were going to be out here, and they came out. They gave us an extra 15 days to move out. I have a disabled father, disabled daughter. My daughter has MS. My dad is on oxygen 24/7. I have a 4-year-old grandson that I got guardianship of, I take care of, and nowhere to go. Everywhere I look for RV park, they're saying my trailer's too old to put it in there, so I have no idea what I'm going to do. That's bottom line.
My name is Amanda Bauer. I actually have 2 sons, and yeah, I've lived in the dunes for the past probably on and off for the past 5 years, and it sucked. To be honest, I've been over here by Friends of the Dunes, and I've been over there, down by that parking lot towards Eureka, and I've been right over there at the Water District too, so I mean, I just keep getting kicked out everywhere I go.
My name's William Edward Dickey. I never really took it seriously. I was self-sheltered. I lived in the same house for 27 years. I had an acre of land, a giant swimming pool, 11.5 feet deep, 20 by 40, an acre of land. I mean, I was isolated from being homeless. I was living, I thought, just reasonable. I wasn't trying to be, precocious in any way, shape, or form. I didn't think I was that big of a deal, but now I look back on it and I was kind of cocky and stupid. I would have used my land a little bit differently. I would have had more people be able to camp out if they wanted to.
My name is Eric Bowden. I've been here for 31 years, and I'm sitting at the Arcata Transit Center. I've been homeless for about 7 years now. I want to say that everyone's not a bad guy out here. We're struggling. There's some good people out here.
My name's Ami Moore, and I'm born and raised in California, so I've been in Humboldt for a while, and it's my home. Most of us, I'll say, try to do our best to not become a problem for the people of the city that want to access all these public places where we end up, and and the workers whose job is to take care of them, and even the police. You know, we don't want them to have to come babysit or tell us things every day about what we should or shouldn't do. We would rather have choices, but there just aren't as many choices as people think there might be. And when you're out here having to do something as simple as shower and change your clothes and something clean is an extreme effort or struggle that we don't always have the ability to do.
Do you stay warm in there?
You know, I've had everything from big setup 6-man tents that I could walk in with a raised air bed to some of the smaller tents. I don't prefer this setup because it's hard to keep it dry in the heavy rains we get. But I do stay warm enough. I usually have little tricks and things, and I know how to keep more than enough bedding usually. I'll share with others what I needed, but it's good to have a couple extra blankets up here and try to keep them bagged and dry, because this rain and stuff, it can go through anything, it seems like sometimes.
Stacy Coburn, Cobine, yeah. Rusty, and this is Rusty. I have issues, and it's really difficult, like, to even sit still to fill out applications or to finish the process, you know? I can't. Come here, Rusty. Sorry. It's just kind of hard to, I don't know, it's just really difficult for me. I just have a hard time. I don't really make enough, you know, I don't make enough to pay 3 times the rent, which is what they want you to make when you're working. They want you to be able to have 3 times the rent. But I still don't qualify. I don't qualify for low-income housing. I mean, it's just, I'm stuck in this like middle gray area that's really, it's really shitty, because it's like, what's the incentive to even try and better my life? You know what I mean? If I'd be better off if I didn't have any work under my belt, if I was just, you know, living off of SSI, I'd be better off than trying to, you know, improve myself. It just sucks.
A lot of people don't realize it's not just getting a job. It's you're out there surviving all day, and that's all you can do really is figure out where you're going to go from here to there with all of your gear, because cops are moving you around constantly, and you don't have time to try to. And if you do get a job, who's going to watch your gear, all your stuff while you're gone? And there's got to be a place to take a shower. There's got to be. I mean, it's just so much easier if you have a place. Because when I got in my tiny place, I was able not just to survive, figuring out where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do. I mean, I have time to relax and just step back and take. I mean, I could take a shower. I could, you know, I don't have to worry about where am I going to sleep tonight. Is it going to rain tonight? I just had a great opportunity with here at St. Vincent de Paul. Well, they took me in during the COVID. Sorry. I was stopped.
It's okay. It's okay.
And I got in this tiny house village. I mean, this tiny house, which is great. I just love it. And gave me a lot of opportunities. It did. I've got a job now. I'm working for an outreach program, giving tents and sleeping bags and stuff out to the homeless. And it's a great job, but that's coming to an end, so I'm getting a little scared. And I'm just thankful for what I have.
I don't think people realize that you're only $1,000 away from being homeless, especially if you live check to check. I was going from one friend's house to my sister's house to like my kind of girlfriend's house, but then she didn't want like to label anything, and I would stay there, and then I would stay in a bush, and then I would like, and a lot of time it wasn't like I don't want to go to the shelter or something. They have a curfew. They had a curfew at like 10 and stuff, and I still wasn't wanting to admit that I was homeless. So I would want to stay out with other people and, you know, like have a social life, I guess, essentially, because I was only like 25, and so I wanted to talk with people and go to the bar and stuff. Even though I didn't drink, I'd go with like everyone else and like maybe get a chance to rap or sing or whatever.
would be really helpful would be if they built a complex of studio apartments. Really, you have your own bathroom and a little kitchenette and just one room, you know, that you can lock the door. Because most people really on the streets really don't get along with everybody else, so it's difficult to have like a roommate situation. So I think that would be the most beneficial, that we're sliding scale and not just low income. The NIMBYs make it really difficult to get anything done. They're not in my backyard, you know. But we can't keep pushing this problem off to the next town because it never gets solved, you know. It just never gets solved.
Helpful would be like somebody to help me as far as me going is filling out all these applications. I mean, they want everything. There's so much stuff that you have to do. They want references. They run credit checks. They want every member in the household to fill out an application and pay $20 application fee for each one of them. I mean, that's $60 that if I don't get the house, I'm not going to get that back at all. It's just ridiculous. And the prices of the houses, like a 3-bedroom apartment is running like $1,900 a month. Plus you have to pay your utilities. Plus they want a $2,500 to $3,000 deposit on top of that just to get in that place.
Place to park the trailers, you know, the older trailers that a lot of places won't accept. I mean, that would help out a lot.
More trash disposal that we have access to, more access to some type of public showering, set up more places where they would say that, okay, we understand if you don't have a place, we want to help you get a place, but if you don't have one till now, there are some places outside where we're kind of almost setting aside, so to speak, or at least making it understood that because it's a public space that's a safe haven from the weather or such, you know, we're going to make exceptions for that for certain circumstances, but not necessarily to tell people it's okay to just live here long term forever and not try, but we really don't have even anywhere like that. They actually have worked to remove places like that, if anything.
The biggest thing I think the awareness is to change the attitude that we're trash out here. We're not. We're just trying to get by. It's hard. It doesn't make sense, man. I mean, look at me. This is not right. I've never been like this in my life. Hot water would be nice. A place to cook. A place to just have a life. Feel like you're a human again. I don't feel like I'm human anymore. I can't even shower but once every 2 weeks. Once every 2 weeks. Are you listening? Once every 2 weeks. I'm used to showering twice a day.
Some people are so far removed and lost, they don't know how to find the help. And people try to find them, but they don't even know how to help themselves. They need coddling. They do. It's like cooking an egg right. Otherwise, it's going to get a runny yolk.
Another big thing that helped us all, even when we were in the shelter, was we had a community garden. And that really helped because instead of like bickering with each other and like at each other's throats, we all helped grow this like amazing garden. If you see someone going through hard times, try your best to help them because they're that much closer to the edge than the rest of us. And we are closer than you think. I'm telling you, a lot of us are closer than we think to being homeless. One of the people who worked at the homeless shelter, I saw him a week ago, and he's homeless now. And he was staff there like 4 years ago.
I think like a tiny house village would be great, or like what Betty Jen has. You know, they could do a whole bunch of different little things, you know, like even in the containers. Those were made into the places for people to stay. And once, if you just give them time to get acclimated, I think they could get their mental health, they could get on their meds again, and they could, you know, yeah, be able to survive without having to worry about surviving.
They need somebody out here for the mentally ill because their number is grown through the roof. The number in a day that come to our building that are mentally ill are on their way to being really mentally ill is half at least. You know, and they don't know where to get help. They don't know what to do, and a lot of them don't even know there's a problem with them. The things that I think would help everybody out here would be tiny houses. They give people more self-esteem with themselves. They have control over what they do next. When people see, like for instance this one, she's come a long ways. They see that you can better yourself, then they want to better themselves. I mean, nobody wants to really be bad. They just need help being good.
People are so worried about homeless people. They think that we're going to steal, we're going to hurt people, we're going to rape and pillage, smoke drugs, sell crack to kids, whatever. That's not it.
What frustrates me is when crime is associated with homelessness. The vast majority of crimes that we've had are not from people who are experiencing homelessness. And we had a rash of burglaries down in Old Town and people breaking into Old Town, and there were certain community members that were saying, this is a homelessness issue, and it wasn't. It was a person that was housed that we ended up catching, and it wasn't a community member experiencing homelessness. If they're homeless doesn't mean that they're out committing crimes.
Don't forget that they're people. We're all people, and we all have feelings, and we all want to be heard, and we all want to be felt, and we all want to be held and fed. And so, although you might not have the money right now, maybe you could sit down and listen to somebody.
Humboldt is home, land of the tall trees, weed and the ocean breeze. Humboldt is home. Anybody got a tip on a place I could rent, please?
Waking up in a bush or on the street is not new to me. Usually I had people explain their view to me. I was lonely but not alone, had homies but not at home. I went from a bed and fully fed, then to a couch, woke up in a hospital. Cops looking, harassing, nurses staring and passing, but no speaking while I'm barely breathing. I was down due to disabilities. Life changed for me when I stopped listening to those who let me sit and rot like crabs just in a pot. Too late to say what's hot. Before we knew it, we were ruined, swayed by sewage. Once I heard myself and didn't follow no one else, I made it out with many friends helping. Got the game. What's most impressive when you make it out, that is my inner wealth. That's why every struggle, big or small, we can change the outcome of the hands we're dealt. I hope it's felt. I hope it's felt.
Humboldt is home, land of the tall trees, weed and the ocean breeze. Humboldt is home. Anybody got a tip on a place I could rent, please?
That's striking, and there seems to be a theme moving lately, because at the League of California Cities Redwood Division meeting, half of the presentation was by Fort Bragg's Care Response Unit and the things that they've put together in-house and what they're doing. And they have I think they call it the Pueblo, which is a small housing area with micro housing. And they said that one of the things that they've had issues with was when they bring people in and get them housed, some of them haven't learned to live in a community. And so one of the things they work with them at is being a community member. But I mean, they are amazing what they've done. And they've made connections outside of Fort Bragg, so they've had residents whose family members had substance abuse problems and were able to get them connected for treatment and rehab. And I mean, they cover all areas. It's not just the houseless community. So, but any other questions? Yes, Supervisor Madrone.
Well, I think we all would agree that it was very moving, and very much appreciate the funding from HCOG to help these multimedia projects come together. So thank you, staff, for your work on that. I just wanted to share real quickly with some, there was a lot of talk about tiny homes in there. And last week we had a Zoom conversation with Senator McGuire and Hoopa Valley Tribal Council. Some of you may know they have a modular plant out there in Hoopa that was built about 12 years ago. It's state of the art to produce modular homes. But it shuttered because they're trying to build full-size homes, which required wide load escorts out to the valley, and it was mostly being done on speculation. So Senator McGuire's staff are searching for funding to get them 50 to 100 grand to do a feasibility analysis on getting that plant back up and running to produce tiny homes. They also log a lot of timber on the Hoopah Square, and they haul it to Riddle, Oregon to mill it. So we got them a planer, we're working to get them a blade and get the mill back opening and running in Hoopah so that they could take their own lumber, produce it into, their own trees, turn it into lumber and use that in their modular plant. We're hoping to get $10 million to build the first 100 tiny homes or 200 tiny homes to be placed on Hoopah Reservation and or other tribes because they actually have land already. They don't have a NIMBY issue. They have site control. They have the land. They just need the funding to get this thing up and running and happening, which, in terms of job values for Trinity Valley out there, this is a phenomenal opportunity. And also for high school trades training programs that are being linked into it as well, because we may or may not know that, young kids aren't getting into the trades. And I don't know who's going to build all these homes if we're not training young folks for to be electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and all the things that build homes, right, and stuff. The last piece of this I want to mention that I think is of value to the cities and definitely to the counties is that every year a substantial portion of Section 8 voucher money goes unspent and gets sent back to the federal and state government, whatever, that's federal program. But there's all these resources that go unspent because we don't have enough houses or landlords willing to rent to low-income populations and such. So there's money that's going unspent. So we have a modular plant that's shuttered. We have timber not being milled locally, and we have money to help pay for rents that is going unutilized. So the idea would be that maybe the counties and or cities might want to contract with Hoopah to build 20 or so a year using their own financing, their own general funds, build them, put them on property. And yes, the NIMBYism and the location issue is definitely a large hurdle. But in doing that, then you use the Section 8 vouchers to pay the rents and repay the money that was used to build the houses in the first place. So it's really just the counties or cities loaning this to build these homes and then using that money that's unutilized to finance the repay back to the counties or whatever. And talking to Connie Beck at DHHS, it turns out that all the surrounding counties have a similar issue of unspent Section 8 voucher money. So it's basic concept of taking unutilized things and linking them together and start making some progress on this. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'll be getting in touch through Connie and others at the county to see if there might be interest with the cities. Do cities also get Section 8 voucher money directly, or is it just the counties? Or it's through DHHS primarily, right? So that covers the whole county program. Okay, so it's mainly dealing with the counties then. I'm still learning, but.
And that also includes veterans. So
Yes.
veterans vouchers aren't being spent either because there's not availability for the housing and that type of thing. So
Right.
we could really do a lot better.
And the tiny homes, I mean, it's so well said in that video about how they're not used to living with each other. Even though you think they are, they're in these camps and stuff, but it's a survival mode thing, right? And so having your own little space is just such a huge step forward, So, and just a piece of a very large puzzle.
Any other? Yes.
I just want to say that was a really powerful video, and thank you so much. I've seen it before, I think, on YouTube. But I also want to share that, there was a lot of stuff that was really hard to hear on there, but one of the things that really struck me was Christy. She lived out at Palco Marsh. She is now living in a tiny house. She's working. She's volunteering at Free Meal. She has friends. She has a life. She has some self-worth. And what a gift. And if we just make a difference with one person at a time in that way, we're making a difference. And so I just want to remind that. And then also the other thing that was really important that I heard was, regardless of our situation, all people have value. Everyone has value. And so even the people that are out there feeling like they have no value, sometimes just walking by somebody and giving them a smile can change a whole day, a whole week. So thanks again.
Thank you. Any other?
Well, a quick tie-in with transit. I heard that San Francisco actually has a shower bus that travels around the city, and people get on to take a shower, get off with clean clothes. I don't know. I just thought it might be an interesting transit connection. Not that we have the population maybe to support that, but.
So I actually saw that bus when I was down there working with downtown street teams, and it was at the, I can't remember what district we were in, but it was really interesting, and people could just go line up, take a shower, and carry on. It was a great thing for people. It really makes a difference to be able to take a shower.
Okay. Well, that looks like we wrapped that. That was something else. I'm gonna hunt that down on YouTube and see it again.
We'll make sure that we get the link out to all board members, and feel free to distribute it far and wide to all of your networks. And we're also working as we compile all of these, figuring out the best ways to kind of make sure they're well publicized as a package and individually. So that's still to come, but we'll make sure you all get a link.
Thank you. Okay, but now we come to public comment on non-agenda items. And I don't, oh, Colin Fisk, yes.
Good afternoon. This is Colin Fisk with CRTP, the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. I just wanted to bring the board's attention to the fact that the Board of Supervisors recently formed an ad hoc committee on which Supervisor Madrone sits to look at transportation funding options, including looking at potential funding for public transportation. And I think, among other things, it will not be possible to meet the safe and sustainable transportation targets in the adopted regional transportation plan without a dedicated source of local transit funding. So I just want to encourage HCOG to be actively involved in this process and supporting a local source of transit funding. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it. Well, thank you. And with that, we'll move to the consent calendar. We have 2 items: approval of the meeting record and the 23-24 unmet transit needs report of finding. And does anybody wish to pull or comment on anything?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. And now we move to our action items. Core Hub, Offshore Wind Community Benefits Network, and I believe our executive directors.
Yeah, thank you. For this report, I'll be presenting with Katarina Oscarson, executive in residence at the Core Hub. Katarina will go over the background of the Core Hub and the Offshore Wind Community Benefits Network, and then I'll present on the current focus, which is port development. So last year, we heard from Katarina's colleague, Amy Jester, about the Core Hub and the Offshore Community Benefits Network, and your board voted to support the network. It was just a vote, not necessarily, it was not a resolution, and it focused on just really having HCOG be, an active participant and, signatory and using our logo on outreach activity materials. At this point, we're asking for a little more direction, and we have included in your board packet a resolution that would more explicitly state that HCOG is committed to remaining involved in the Core Hub and the Offshore Wind Community Benefits Network, and that we would be actively engaged all the way up to participating in negotiations if necessary, but certainly active in public outreach, as well as committing to return back to the board at regular intervals to give updates. I think that it's really a good time to hear this update because the benefits network has really been sort of taking off and getting very active as the port is getting the Harbor District has selected a contractor for port development. So there's a lot of activity that it makes sense for us to be getting this. We also have a lot of new board members since we had the last presentation. So I think it's just a good time to get the background. So with that, I'll turn it over to Katarina to start our presentation, and then I'll take over about midway through.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you so much to the staff and HCOG board members for this opportunity to be here with all of you today. My name is Katarina Oskarsson. I'm the executive in residence with the Redwood Region Climate and Community Resilience Hub, or CORE Hub for short. And as Beth said, I'm here today to provide a brief update on the work of the North Coast Offshore Wind Community Benefits Network, and seek your support, hopefully, for our upcoming activities. Just brief background on the Core Hub itself before we talk about the work of the Community Benefit Network. The Core Hub was established in 2021 by regional leaders in climate resilience, and it's an initiative that's been incubated and based at the Humboldt area and Wild Rivers Community Foundation. And our overarching goal is to support the region in becoming the first proven carbon negative or carbon sequestering rural and tribal area in the US by 2030. So it's really a bold goal, but this region is actually on a good path to achieve that. And we do that by providing community engagement, technical assistance, and capacity building resources to help the region transition into a more climate resilient and clean energy future, and do it in a way that really centers equity by ensuring that as we transition to this clean energy future by, for example, embracing offshore wind, we do it in a way that makes sure that the benefits of the transitions really accrue to this place, and especially to residents and communities that have been disinvested and marginalized in the past. And per community request, we can go to next slide. Per community request, the Core Hub's first major effort has really been community engagement around the offshore wind industry cluster, and specifically around figuring out how do we really realize these community benefits from this industry. To that end, Core Hub is a convener of the North Coast Offshore Wind Community Benefits Network, which is really a diverse group of tribal nations, local government agencies, educational institutions, labor leaders, local community organizations, and also individual residents. And we really come together around this collective interest and belief that, again, if this rural and tribal region hosts the offshore wind industry to help the state and the nation to meet its climate and energy security needs and goals, we have to benefit first and foremost, and really want to make sure that we don't repeat the cycles of boom and bust and these sort of extractive natural resource experiences that this region has had for centuries, right? Since the gold and timber rush to the cannabis rush, as well as hydroelectric power solutions. So we really want to make sure that we contribute to a thriving region for generations to come with this type of development. And we can go to next one. So when we talk about offshore wind, we really talk about this industry cluster, and we are looking at shaping how this cluster develops in each of those buckets. So in December, as you all know, the U.S. Bureau of Ocean and Energy Management selected 2 provisional winners of the offshore wind lease auctions to build the wind farms in the Humboldt energy area. The port development is also moving fast with Harbor District selecting Crowley as the developer, and in the future we will of course work on electricity transmission. There will be onshore upgrades to the grid, and just this whole ecosystem of infrastructure and services that will have to come together to make this industry possible. So we can go to next slide. And so how do we go about achieving these community benefits? And Beth will actually talk about what we exactly mean by community benefits, so I'm not going to get there. But you may have heard a lot about these community benefit agreements. That's just really one tool in the toolbox. The next one. Yeah. So we are actively working with the community to really understand what they would like to see and would not like to see as part of this industry, and then really using community benefit agreements as a legally enforceable way to memorialize those things that people want to see over the life of the project. We see it happening in many, more increasingly across the US and in Europe. It's becoming a common practice. And it's basically done by shaping the lease agreements, working on specific community benefit agreements with developers, and including not only sort of financial commitments, but operational commitments to environmental protections that go beyond CEQA mitigation type of measures. It can also be done by including these community benefits in permits, in procurement mechanisms, in just so many different ways. And so we are really mapping all these possibilities. Of course, with unprecedented, once in a generation infrastructure funding for climate resilience that's out there through Inflation Reduction Act and other sources. There is a lot of funding that could be potentially available to achieve some of these benefits that community is asking for, because we recognize that these developers obviously cannot pay for all of those things in the community. And policy and advocacy is also major area of Core Hubs and the Offshore Wind Community Benefits Network focus, because a lot of it really comes down to shaping the way that the federal and state government regulates this entire industry. And those decisions are actually really happening now. And it's just, we cannot repeat oil and gas type of playbook that the government has been using and applying it to, for example, offshore wind. So it's really important to sort of have this wrap around approach with community pushing for these benefits bottom up, but then also trying to shape regulatory policies and conditions in these different funding sources to achieve those benefits. And we can go to the next slide. And so for today, we will actually focus on the port development, because we are in a process of refining community benefit terms that we would like to refine with the community, get more community input, and then negotiate with the Crowley Wind. And we would like to see these benefits being included in the lease and development agreement between Crowley Wind and Harbor District. And so Beth is going to provide more detail on it, because she has been very involved in our network.
Thank you, Katerina. Next slide, please. Okay, so really port development becomes important because of the timing, but also because it really is the key to unlocking the wind industry on the West Coast. So this figure is from BOEM, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and they studied ports up and down the state, because to have the offshore wind industry work, there's a lot of land-based facilities that are needed. These include things for operations and maintenance, manufacturing and fabrication, and staging and integration sites. So they kind of broke those needs into different categories and looked at each port and which ports could provide for which needs. And you'll see that literally Port of Humboldt is the only one. It's the only one that can do it all. So it's right here, and that's why it's not that these other ports can't play some role, and they likely will, but we are literally positioned to do it all. And so that becomes really important as we move forward, and is kind of the focal point for where we're at right now with the benefits network. The offshore wind, it really will, this terminal they're going to build here on our bay, it will be the service hub for the entire West Coast industry. And there's, $1 billion that's expected to build it out. And so with that much money coming, I think it's really imperative, and the network finds it really imperative that we have this strong equity focus and community-centered benefits, and we kind of go into it with that mindset. So next slide, please. So the Harbor District has selected Crowley Wind Services as the company to exclusively negotiate with to develop and operate the offshore wind heavy lift terminal. And the services there will support tenants in the manufacturing, installation, and operation of offshore wind floating platforms. They'll have use of large heavy cargo vessels, and they'll provide crewing and marshaling services in Pacific waters. So what you've got on this slide is the timeline. So right now, the Harbor District is working on those lease and development agreement terms with Crowley Wind Services. They're also simultaneously working to release their environmental document, their CEQA document. So we should see any day now, or probably early next month at this point, the notice of preparation for their environmental review. They'd like to be approving the lease in December and finalizing the EIR with, later next year, and then starting in 2026 to begin building. So really kind of each point before that building circle at the very end is really points where we can be, monitoring, negotiating, encouraging to see some of these benefits realized. That there's decisions at each one of these points where we can make our needs known, and that's why it's so urgent right now to be focused on the port development, because this is happening now. The offshore platforms are going to take several years to come to fruition, but the port development, this is very timely. So next slide. So the goal that we have, and I kind of think of this whole network as really articulating to those coming into the wind industry and coming into our community, how do you be a good neighbor? How do you show up here and deliver for our community rather than just sort of coming in and having negative impacts and serving their own needs? But it's really, they have the opportunity because of the network to hear what's important and what they could do to show up better here. So I think it's really beneficial for us to articulate that, but also beneficial for them to hear it in a really concise way that we've done a lot of the groundwork in terms of bringing diverse stakeholders and articulating the needs. So the goal is to ensure that the port is developed sustainably, equitably, and brings tangible benefits to the community. And our objectives is that the coalition will negotiate community benefits agreement with the Harbor District and Crowley Winds as part of the development agreement package, and that the Harbor District Commissioners approve a final development agreement with Crowley that includes strong community benefits agreement and community center terms. So next slide. So this is kind of an overview of the priority benefit areas that we've developed so far. There's still a lot of work to be done with community engagement. I think that's been a very diverse group of stakeholders working on this, but it still needs to be socialized, and we need that feedback from the larger community. So that is part of what we're working to do, and part of the objectives of bringing this forward to a group like HCOG as well, of just having more forums to discuss these benefits in a public setting. So there's community infrastructure and services, environmental protection and compliance, workforce and economic development, and then community-centered decision-making, outreach and engagement, and then local fisheries protections. And I will say that some of these really fall very squarely in areas that HCOG has been traditionally very involved with, such as infrastructure and, of course, housing now with what we're working on with REAP. But one of the things that I think is really beautiful about the network is we really hear from these diverse stakeholders. And when we join the Community Benefits Network, we're acting as a team. So I have a chance to interact with getting a better handle on what the concerns of our local fisheries are. And that becomes as important as the infrastructure piece, because we are all in the Community Benefits Network together, and we're all coming up with these sort of consensus-driven needs and asks. And so we need to be advocating for all of these. So we'll have, again, these aspects that we're more traditionally involved in, but really needing to understand that when we're joining this, we're in it for all of it. And it all becomes very important to see what we need happen in our community be achieved. So we're going to go just into a little bit more detail on what we're looking at for the different focus areas. So invest in partnerships to enhance community infrastructure and services. I think this one has a lot to do with the things HCOG traditionally is involved in, especially this community benefits funds for investment in vital community services. A lot of that is centered around infrastructure needs, certainly water, sewer, but also absolutely transportation needs and recreation needs, thinking about some of the specific impacts that would happen along the peninsula with public access. That's all in there. Housing certainly falls in that realm as well. So the sort of current thinking is that we would also, in addition to having a broader community benefits fund, that there would be some source of funding specifically dedicated towards housing, realizing that we're at crisis mode with that already before we even have the added impacts of additional industry showing up here with all the people it will bring. So operational commitments as part of the wind terminal design to do it so there's community safety, hoping for electrification of the port, and commitment to a dig once policy, which we've had many of our jurisdictions adopt, making sure that we can co-locate infrastructure as much as possible without digging additional trenches. And then support in obtaining public funding for community infrastructure priorities. So this is really just a commitment that, as we seek to leverage that, we can kind of count on even the soft sort of soft skills or soft help of just writing a letter of support, so that we have that sort of private support documented as we go after dollars for projects that are important. Environmental protection and compliance. This area is really focused on moving beyond just what might be included in CEQA as standard mitigation measures, but really looking at having some adaptive management and a local committee that can help inform that. We have so many experts locally that could really be valuable in giving information about different environmental concerns that may arise that we can't foresee right now because we've never had an industry like this operating in our area. And so having some adaptive management commitments that, if we start seeing certain impacts, that we have ways to evaluate those and commitments to do something about them. And then also a request to develop a zero emission wind terminal by 2030. Equitable workforce and economic development. This is another one that's a priority area. And this is really to establish and deliver local and targeted hire goals. We want to ensure that members of tribal nations, women, people of color, and those with limited career opportunities really get to participate in this workforce, and all of the details that come with that about how we would develop those skills locally. Support non-construction career pathways. This really has to do with things that not just the construction part of it, but, some of the natural resources management, the biological services that might be needed as part of this. And then provide right of first refusal to qualified applicants who are members of tribal nations, peninsula residents, Black, Indigenous, and communities of color, low income, and members of the Northern California fishing industry. Just again, making sure that our local folks really are going to be at the table from the get-go. And then address on-the-job bullying and harassment and ensure community safety. The community safety part is wide-reaching, and one of the things that comes up a lot, especially for residents of the peninsula, is just concerned about the increased traffic and the speeds that these trucks might be going. So really getting commitments in there on how we're going to have monitoring for that and ensure that there's an understanding of our expectations about the behavior that'll be happening on the peninsula. And this also includes measures to address the risk of murdered and missing Indigenous peoples. And I want to just have a little side story about this one, because I think we all know we're at, critical level for this in our own communities. And when I saw this first listed, I actually was just, I knew it was important, but I wasn't sure how it related to what we were talking about. So I asked that question. And one of the things that was shared with me that I did not know is that there's data that comes out of areas such as the Dakotas and Texas, that when these sort of extractive, let's say it's a new oil extraction facility and kind of this town pops up around that, the rates of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples also goes up when those industries come to those areas. So there is a direct link, and I think given the critical tragic levels we're at here locally with that, I think it's so important that this gets elevated. So I'm happy to see that it stays in the terms so far. So then there's also community-centered decision-making, outreach, and engagement. So we really want to develop and implement, a long-term engagement plan. Like, how can we memorialize and make sure there's commitments to continued engagement as this industry takes shape, and then as it blossoms and becomes kind of a permanent fixture of our community. So really laying that out and making sure that there's a commitment to engage with all members of our community, not just those that are traditionally included, and then specifically a tribal nations engagement framework. And then the local fisheries protections, and I've really enjoyed getting a chance to learn about some of their needs, but they would like to see a Humboldt Bay Fisheries Communications Plan and an access plan developed to reduce impacts to local fisheries, create a Humboldt Bay water safety plan to improve safety for all users of the bay, and create an economic displacement reserve fund to address fisheries displacement. Some of the things that I found really interesting is just a concern over the level of traffic that's going to be in our harbor, and making sure that fisheries can still have access to that, and where they can launch from, and where it's going to be safe for them to do so. So I think it's been great to learn about some of their needs through this process. And then finally, just getting to, how we formalize this agreement. So there's a resolution that I am, requesting that the board adopt, and it really kind of formalizes our participation. And what that will look like is possibly any of these activities or all of these activities. So what I've already been doing is engaging through network meetings, working groups, collaborative efforts. So, really wanting to grow that understanding of what this industry is going to do in our communities, and working together to shape how it develops, developing the strategies of how we move forward. This network has a lot to still figure out in terms of, moving the negotiation forward, and how we kind of stick to our guns in terms of what's in the terms, and where we can be flexible, and how we kind of govern that flexibility. So there's a lot of work to do there just to kind of figure out internally how we operate. And then, we want to be supportive for and the evolution of the community benefits priorities. Like I said, we're still, we've had this diverse stakeholder involvement, which has been really beautiful, but there's still more people we need to include. And so we need to be responsive to hearing that, and let our priorities evolve as we hear that. And we really are going to be advancing these priorities through a coalition-based approach. And, again, education for the community, having all kinds of different communication strategies. And then up to supporting and participating in negotiations. And then, as we reach the community benefits agreements, these things, we want them to be memorialized. We want them to be enforceable. So it's not a handshake. These things are built in. And so we would not sign anything as critical as an agreement without coming back to your board and seeking separate approval for that to be a signatory. What we would do in the meantime is be able to, kind of like the board has already approved, be able to sign on, support letters, that kind of thing, public relations information. That's kind of where we're at now, but we wouldn't do any sort of signatory action without the board's formal approval. So that does conclude the presentation about the network. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And Katarina has a ton of background as well. So we're happy to take questions.
Okay. Well, that's a lot happening right there. Any Councilmember West?
I'm really pleased that HCOG is stepping in on this. If I hear a lot of people who are out, mostly fishermen, who are very concerned about what's going to come up, what this looks like, and they're getting probably some misinformation. So I hope not only that you can get that word, you get these agreements that everybody can get help with, they can get their own voice heard, but that you get it out to the public so they can understand this. So that sounds like what you're doing. I'm really pleased that HCOG is stepping in to help with this, and maybe that'll make it smoother for the community.
Member Arroyo.
Thank you. My comments are a little bit from a transit perspective, but also just general endorsement for this process. It's been, since so much of this infrastructure is planned in my district as a supervisor, I will say that I've been participating in the Core Hub for some time, and I just have nothing but positive things to say about the team and the level of engagement that's been happening, and how frankly, how skilled Katarina and her peers are at really bringing all the differing perspectives together and finding, opportunities for common ground, and really having a good process to move things forward, as well as the way that Core Hub is regarded already at the state and federal level, which I've heard feedback through various folks and electeds at various levels that, people know that Core Hub is active and really respect and kind of lift it up as an example of a group convening well around these issues. And it seems like we're in some ways leaps and bounds ahead of other areas that might be seeing this kind of development in their near future too. So just wanted to, give that positive endorsement for the process, and there might be participants in the Core Hub that we don't always agree with, but I think it's still really valuable for us to have our staff there. When I say us, I mean HCOG, which I realize I'm not here representing HCOG, but still, I think it really makes a lot of sense for Beth to be there, for HCOG representation to be there, and then Humboldt Transit Authority will certainly continue being a part of the process as well. I did have one question that really just came to mind as you were talking just now, because I haven't dug into our regional transportation plan around the issue of marine transportation. Is really not something I'd thought a whole ton about, other than, kind of thinking about the idea one time of having short sea shipping. But honestly, this recent meeting where local fishermen were saying well, we actually anticipate that we're likely to be asked to ferry people back and forth, and we have boats, and so that's a potential income stream for the fishing community, but also brings up the question of have we looked at marine transportation in any depth in our planning documents?
I would say that we have not, and I think a couple things happen. We have a section that sort of talks about that, right? But it's very light. And the reason for that is we have no funding that goes with it. There's no real policy that we get to assign dollars with. So typically what that is, and it's sort of similar story to air travel, right? So there's a whole other entity working on that, much like the Harbor District really focuses on the marine aspects. Ideally, we would at least convey through our regional transportation plan the priorities of those other entities, and have a chance to, make comments and vet those a little bit. I will say for the next update, I think we're going to see a lot more interest and participation in our regional transportation plan from the Harbor District. I had a side conversation with a staff there that, mentioned that, I know I haven't always been super responsive when you've asked about, adding things to the RTP, but realizing that consistency is important for funding that they're seeking. So much like for our transportation projects, where there's at least, if nothing else, a box to check that says, yes, this project is consistent with the regional transportation plan. I think, the Harbor District will find for some of the funding they're seeking, because it does relate to transportation, that they're going to want to see that consistency too. So I think we're going to get more involvement, if not before, certainly at the next round, which is, coming right up within a couple years. We get to update our regional transportation plan every 4 years, so there's not a lot of lead time there. But I think we'll see more of that than we have in the past.
I think there's definitely going to be an intersection with the marine industry, the truck and auto transportation and air transportation, because it's just, there's not a way to do it without it. Did you have a comment, Mayor Jones?
Yeah, shut myself off. Okay, I was really excited about this. I'm very excited about this happening, even though Blue Lake is an inland city. I was on a cruise around the British Isles and saw wind turbines out in the ocean, and it's just very exciting to see. It's a beautiful sight, really. What I saw when I looked at the Community Benefits Fund, I was thinking about the early part of Humboldt Area Foundation, which actually got its first seed money from the government when the forestry industry was displaced due to the parks that were put in place. And I'm imagining that that's what your Community Benefits Fund will look something like with that model already here. And then the other thing I just wondered was, I'm always curious, how did they come up with what the Crowley Wind Services group made as what our bay is worth? You know, how did they come up with the number to determine that this is how much it's worth to have this service in our bay? Do you understand what I'm asking?
I'm not sure I do. You mean like how they determined like this was worth $1 billion investment?
Well, yeah, somewhat like that. But I mean, the cost of building these and then the needs that our harbor district would have to incur to be improved. Mm-hmm. Is that how we came up with the end result of the price of the services?
I don't know if we can say that, but I would say that just kind of for me, the short answer is perhaps looking at a couple things. One, our own call area and the amount of electricity that stands to be generated right off the coast of Humboldt, but then realizing that this will be the hub for all of the West Coast. And I know Katarina's had more interaction with Crowley than I have personally, but I think they're realizing, I think one of the terms that got thrown around recently was like the crown jewel. So I don't know, what the sky's the limit is sort of feels like. And that's one thing to really, that I've taken away from these network meetings is our asks should be bold. We have a tremendous resource here that is unparalleled, and we need to realize we have that and that it's worth protecting and making sure that we're very clear about what our community needs for this to be successful for everyone. So I think, don't underestimate the value of Humboldt Bay. And I don't know if it's possible to overestimate it.
Yeah, that's kind of what my question was how do you put a price tag on something that is not owned by anyone per se? I mean, it's a community resource, our oceans. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I think Mayor Burgell.
I just have a quick comment. So I really appreciate that we are actually engaging with the tribes this time. I think it's really important to really have those conversations. I know they really felt blown off with the Terrigen project. And so really including them is going to be really helpful. And then to speak to what I just heard, we have a saying that we say in sales, and it is ask for all the money. And when you've spent too much, they will tell you. So, there you go.
Supervisor Madrone.
That's good. The money from the park primarily supported REDEC. I think that's where a lot of the seed money went to.
Oh.
Not HAF, but
okay.
But it did come into the county in a
right,
major way.
Yeah.
To try and create jobs in particular and lots of other things because of all the displaced mill workers and woodworkers and such. In fact, at RCAA, we had a training program for a lot of those folks that came through a lot of that process. But I wanted to say that, one of the things we've seen out on the peninsula is a lot of industrial development and investment and then walking away from toxic nightmares in the end. And I'm hoping that the Core Hub is addressing that issue of wanting to see bonding and or whatever other appropriate. I mean, I'm fully supportive of doing this offshore wind, don't get me wrong. And I agree with Mayor Burgell that it's great that we're reaching out to the tribes and the fisher folk immediately, because those are some very impacted parts of the community. But the jobs, the potential, I mean, who wouldn't be supportive if we can work all these things out? But I want to make sure that if and or when it's over with, that we're not left with another big cleanup bill out there. So those are the kinds of things you try to look at up front in developing leases or community benefit agreements. The other thing is making sure that we get the local labor out of it all. And I know that's a huge piece of community benefit agreements that I fully support there. In regards to transportation on the waters, I think Supervisor Arroyo is correct that there's going to be a lot going on, and I can understand why the fisher folk might be wondering, is there going to be like a crossing guard out there or like a signal, or how's this all going to work? Because there's only so many opportunities to get over the bar and do all kinds of things, right? But wonderfully, RCAA, once again, back 22 years ago, did an amazing report on non-motorized trails on the bay, including kayak trails and other places to launch boats and all kinds of things. So I think what we're talking about now is the motorized piece of travel on the bay, but that has to interface with also our recreation non-motorized. And so that's a great starting point. I don't know if that was ever updated, but it was an amazing document, 20 years old now or more, but a great place to start in terms of the regional transportation plan. It's a wonderful document. So anyway, what was that?
I did work on updating it.
Oh, you did? All right.
Yeah, but it's still now a little outdated even then. So
oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Great.
It was it's a network of water trails around
Yep.
Humboldt Bay and water access points, but definitely
Wonderful.
lots of opportunity there.
Good for you. Excellent.
Any other comments or questions? I know it's not in sales, but it's been said that you only get one chance to really to do it right the first time, and that's what we're working on here. And it's clean energy, but getting that energy to the land and generating it is the part that we have to be careful of. So with that, we have no informational items. So by motion, we can reconvene as the board and approve the.
This resolution.
Oh, I thought that would be part of the.
It's an action item.
I'll move approval of the resolution.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Okay. So with that, now we'll reconvene as the HCOG board and approve the PAC recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you so
you.
much.
Move reconvening?
Well, we need motion to reconvene.
That's what I'm
Okay.
moving reconvening.
I'll second.
Okay. So motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passed. We come now to HCOG staff and PAC
Do we
members.
need a separate motion? I didn't include it. Let me say I'll amend the motion to include approval of the PAC recommendation, just to be clear. Is that appropriate? Okay. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so we come to the executive director's report.
All right, thank you. Just a few announcements. I'll keep it just fairly short. I just want to mention that HCOG staff attended the groundbreaking, which was really a ribbon joining ceremony for the Humboldt Bay Trail South project yesterday. It was really inspiring to hear from individuals who have been working on this trail for over 20 years, including our very own board and PAC members, Supervisor Madrone and Supervisor Arroyo. So that was wonderful representation, and construction's going to start now, and it's expected to be complete by the end of 2024. So very exciting on that. And then also in the same general area, we've been working with Caltrans to schedule the groundbreaking for the Indianola project. And Caltrans will be sending out the invites. All board members and all TAC members will receive the invites for that. But you can mark your calendars in advance. It's going to be June 15th at 1 p.m. And it basically will take place in the parking lot of the Chef's store, which I think most people know as the cash and carry. But that's where it will be staged. So we'll be safe, because we all know Indianola is not safe. So we'll be sure to be out of harm's way, but ready to do some groundbreaking there. And then also May is Bike Month. There's been successful events going on all month. You can see the full calendar at bikemonthhumboldt.org. But one really important event is coming up this weekend at the Jefferson Community Center in Eureka, and that's the bike celebration, which is from 11 to 2. So if you have a chance to stop by, that would be great. And then finally, I'll close with the CHP stats for our supplemental patrols. We got some information before the meeting on that. So on State Route 36, over the last 2 months, they've done 16 deployments, and that resulted in 25 citations, 21 verbal warnings, and 69 motorists assisted. And on State Route 96, they did 9 deployments, and that resulted in three citations, 16 verbal warnings, and 37 motorists assisted. So, so our supplemental patrols continue to help motorists stranded on the side of the road. So that concludes my report.
Well, those are some awesome numbers with the, it shows the value of it and the need.
And we expect that to go up as summer approaches and the tourist season hits us. So they definitely work hard to keep those patrols going during the summer season.
Citizen assists, that's a need.
Well, I'm noticing on June 15th, that's a Thursday, that would be our HCOG meeting, which we're talking about having at 4:15 now, since that would give you a little more time to get over here. But anyway, you're aware that that's the same night as it's also.
It'll be a busy HCOG day.
Yeah, it's also Arcata High graduation, and I have my first grandchild is graduating, so I will probably have my substitute here if he can make it. Okay, thank you.
All right, and Caltrans reports.
Good afternoon, board members and Caltrans staff. Thank you for having me. I'm Saskia Reimer-Burnett, and I'm in for Tasha Alstrand today. And I do have a few updates. Firstly, the 23-24 Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. We're currently in the review of the grants. We're anticipating that recommendations will be at headquarters will be happening. The awards will be announced in late summer, and it's now expected to be late August. We had thought it would be July, August, but it's been a little delayed. The next item we have is the district has asset management unit has a survey and invitation to comment on the 2023 10-year plan, a list of nominated projects, and I think HCOG staff sent that out, I believe, to our board and TAC members to have a look at that. They did a very good job in sending out a reminder email, so thank you very much for that, and highlighting a section that talks about priority projects that you can read through. Kirsten Thurston from our district project management asset management team, she's the contact person for that, and we'd really like encourage everyone to do that survey if they are interested to get feedback. The survey comments are due back on May 31st. One thing to note, if you do go through the survey, is that the survey does not save. So if you review the projects first and make your comments and notes, and then enter all of that in at one time, then you can submit that. Otherwise, it doesn't save. You can't go and come back to it. The Broadway pop-up, you'll notice that has started, and they were installed on Friday, and they will be up for about a month. And Jeff Pimentel, as you know, is the project manager and the contact for that. And the test demo are really just the temporary installations of materials, delineators or paint and what have you, so that you can get a sense of what improvements might look like, and it gives people a chance to see whether they work well, get some feedback on that. It could result in some modifications before construction. So we expect this approach to having the pop-up demos to be more common as time goes on. It's a good opportunity to test it out. And so we do have a Caltrans project webpage, and that has a link, or you can type in the Broadway pop-up in Google, and it takes you to that project page, and it's got all kinds of details on the demo, how long it'll be there. It has the map of the locations and the survey as well. Today we did receive a new document. It's a draft Main Street, California It's entitled A Guide for People-Centered State Highway Main Streets, kind of a long name. And there is an invitation to comment by May 31st. There is a link and a QR code to access that draft document, and it's from our Caltrans Engineering Landscape Architecture Unit in the northern region. And so what that is about is the guide is sort of highlighting strategies for improving transportation and community vitality on those Main Street areas, of which we of course have several, and Eureka is a key one. So that is something, if you're interested, again, those comments are due by the end of this month. And then I think that is probably it. Was going to mention the groundbreaking ceremony, but Beth, you've already covered that. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Anybody have a question or?
Yes. Thank you for the report, by the way. It was very detailed. And on page 6 of 7, at the very bottom is the Humboldt County near Arcata at the Route 200-299 separation, the bridge project. And it says here that it's going to be completed on March 10th, 2024. But if it's the one I'm thinking of, it looks to me like it's very close to being done now. I mean, within a few months.
Okay, well, thank you for the comment, and we'll look into that. And if you have any other information, we can definitely send your comments to Beth, and we can look into that.
Well, I see the contact person is Kiran Gopana. Is that the name?
It's Kirsten. Excuse me?
I think she's looking at the milestone report.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, we'll connect with the project manager and then make sure we can get you the most accurate information on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Supervisor Madron.
Thank you, Chair. I know Caltrans has put a lot of money into the Bay Trail South, which we're so thankful for. That was mentioned at the ribbon joining yesterday that I think you guys put in the lion's share of money for that. And then the Coastal Conservancy put in a few million as well. And I think that was partially because of the requirement from the Coastal Commission to engage in that project as part of the mitigation for the Indianola project. If I remember correctly, there was a interface there. I'm just wondering, so there's a project where you're spending money offside out of your facilities as part of an overall transportation planning effort, whatever. And I think about Scenic Drive in Trinidad and how that used to be Highway 1. That was a Caltrans facility. It hasn't been for 60 or 70 years since Highway, well, actually it would have been after 64. Yeah, so quite a few years, right, that it's been a county road. As many know, our county roads are in the worst shape, as we saw through our PCI index report recently. The county roads are in far worse shape than any city. Trinidad's got the best roads around, by the way. Of course, they only have like a half mile of road or something, but they do a good job up there. But at any rate, we're hurting, so we're trying to figure out funding sources for things. And I'm going to be talking with Congressman Huffman about the infrastructure bill, and I've started conversations with our public works director, Tom Mattson, because it's literally probably a $20 million bill to do significant engineering repairs, hill picker walls, et cetera, for Scenic Drive. But it is our Pebble Beach Drive without toll stations, right? So, and it is the economic engine for that area, and it is just in horrible condition. And so I'd love to know if Caltrans was capable of maybe cost sharing or engaging in a project like that, if we can get substantial funding from the federal government, to really pull it off. So I just thought I'd tease out that thought for consideration, if you might take that back to your folks. And love to see it in the STIP and along in our regional transportation plan as well, which it wasn't even listed there until I got on the board, because the county, in order to get a project listed, there has to be an entity who's willing to maintain it, and nobody had stepped up on Scenic Drive, but now we have. The county has said, yes, we would like to maintain that road and take care of it for a lot of reasons. So just putting the thought out there for possible consideration. Thank you.
Any other? Okay. Well, yes, Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. On HTA's behalf, I have a couple of exciting updates. Some of you may have seen this in the news, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because I think it's really cool. So we received another round of Transit Intercity Rail Connect program funding, the TIRSIP grant. And with that funding, we'll be working collaboratively with the Yurok tribe to acquire electric shuttles to conduct a microtransit program. And we'll also be developing the first, we believe it's the first ever over-the-road coach. So like one of those really nice, comfy buses for longer distances that's going to be hydrogen powered. And so that will be used for the Redwood Coast Express route, which will help to bridge the gap between Humboldt and Mendocino. And so currently there's a gap between Willits and Garberville with transit. And so, there's connections all the way down to San Francisco south of there. But we've essentially worked to fill that gap and working closely with Mendocino Transit. And so ultimately, you'll be able to travel from Del Norte County all the way to the Bay Area on transit for significantly less cost. And I think the goal is to make it similarly efficient to other modes of transportation to get down south and back up north. So that'll be really helpful for our region as far as connectivity. And the other piece that you might be interested in your jurisdictions is, we have this essentially CARB, the Air Resources Board last month, end of last month, finally approved the regulations phasing out the medium and heavy duty trucks. So I had to look it up to make sure I got the dates right, but essentially between 2035 and 2042, all like local delivery and big rig trucks and government fleets have to, and garbage trucks will be needing to phase out and become zero emission vehicles. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware that we are, to my knowledge, going to be the first entity capable of providing hydrogen fuel. And we will be having some hydrogen buses in our fleet pretty soon, as well as hydrogen fueling capabilities at HTA, based at our site here in Eureka. So it's somewhat central. I know it's not the closest, and we may, I think the technology is kind of rapidly advancing. So there may be other alternatives at some point. But right now, to convert, we weren't able to really run the distances we needed with battery electric vehicles given the current technology. So, 400 mile radius just wasn't feasible. So some of our routes are quite far and we needed that flexibility. So we will be having hydrogen electric vehicles, and, as folks explore those in your own jurisdictions, if you end up going the hydrogen route, we'll have a fueling option for you. But I think there's a lot still to discuss about the implications of that CARB decision, which is in line with, the governor and legislature's direction. But anyway, just wanted to kind of put that on folks' radar. And it's an exciting time for HTA. I think we're doing some exciting, cool, big projects. So, and thank you for the unanimous support of the unmet transit needs findings that we approved earlier in this meeting, determining that we do have the capacity to expand service in line with those findings. So we'll be working on that.
Awesome. Any other? Seeing none, we will adjourn.